Sorry, it's saying, never mind.
All right, if we're good to go, I'll go ahead and get started. Are we recording?
Yes, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you for coming in today. My name is John. I'm one of the career service specialists here. I'm one of your presenters today. I also am here co-presenting with my colleagues. I'll let them introduce themselves as well.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Drew Logan, and I am the SAS advocate at the Eastview campus.
Good morning, and I am Jaquel Diggs. I also go by Jackie, and I am the SAS advocate at the Highland campus.
All right, perfect. So today we're going to be talking about how to get ready for a job fair, how to talk about your professional self, your career story, and how to get the most from your time at a job fair. Now, before we jump into things, I do want to let people know we are recording this, so we're going to try to save questions until the end. And then if anybody has very specific questions, maybe very in-depth ones, that might be a really good opportunity to actually meet with either a career specialist if it's related to that, or with one of our SAS advocates if it's related to any of those sorts of needs. And with that being said, I'll go ahead and get started. So today with our lesson, we're going to go over what is a job fair? What can you do to get the most from attending the event? I want to give you a little bit of skills to help you with telling, with articulating your professional story, really emphasizing, highlighting your skills and your strengths, and kind of step by step what to do before, during, and then after you attend a job fair. So one of the things that is asked sometimes, why would I attend a job fair? What is the reason for it? It is an opportunity for you to directly speak to employers to find out about who's hiring and what they're hiring for and how can I get into those roles. So it's a chance to meet with employers face to face. That way, it's not just replying to a job posting, but actually getting to introduce yourself. It's a way for you to learn more about different companies, different industries, I should say different positions within those places as well. And it's also a great way to learn about the company culture, which would be important. You want to make sure that it would be a good fit for you and your strengths and abilities. Overall, looking at new job opportunities, looking to network with other professionals, either people in other industries or people within your own industry. And overall, it just lets you continue to practice developing your communication, your interviewing skills, your professional storytelling skills. You can talk about yourself. It gives you some more confidence later on that you can keep using as you have interviews, as you continue to do this for the rest of your professional career. So here are some of the steps that you're going to want to look at when you're getting ready. So step one, I'm going to go through each of these in more detail, but it's going to mean a little bit of research, reflection, and kind of developing a strategy before you go. You want to make sure that you're crafting your career story, which I'm going to talk specifically about an elevator pitch and a resume today. Briefly, I'll mention kind of some of the things you want to wear to the fair. What should I wear when I go attend a job fair? What you might want to do to get the most from the event. It's not just showing up. There's some different things you want to do while you're there. And then at the end, we'll talk about maybe some specific questions, examples of questions anyway, that you might want to ask employers to help you get better information about those companies, about those positions. So step one, research, reflection, and strategy. So it's a good idea to find out, like you saw with Trish, she has her background, has some of the participating employers coming up. It's a great idea to research some of those companies ahead of time. Handshake, our job board, and then LinkedIn are both really good online platforms to find out more about companies. Check their, professional social media. You can go to those company websites to see some of their missions and value statements. That could give you a little more information about their company culture, especially how do they relate towards, people that have disabilities? How are they with providing accommodations? Sometimes you can find out some of that information ahead of time and then have more specific questions once you go to a job fair. It's a good idea to get a idea of the job fair map. Make sure you can plan your approach. How do I need to get to the location? How do I get around at the location I'm going to? Things of that sort. That's all good to do ahead of time. Obviously, you want to do a little bit of reflection. So I'll talk to you about creating an elevator pitch, and it's something you're going to want to practice. It's going to be how you introduce yourself to those employers when you go to a job fair. With that, you're going to want to be able to really be able to talk about and articulate your strengths, your experiences, your interests, your values, even some of your preferences. You're trying to show what you bring to a company. What value do you offer as a professional? And then it's also a good idea to start making sure your online professional presence is out there as well. Make sure you're registered on Handshake, fill in your profile in Handshake. Make sure to have a resume with you. I encourage you to have a few actual physical copies printed out to bring to the event. If you don't have one, you might want to sign up for LinkedIn and then make sure your profile's up to date, because often employers may follow up after meeting with a job seeker at a job fair and do a little more research. What can I find about this individual? And then just generally, it's good practice to make sure that you are cleaning up your wider social media. So make sure that you have things private that you would like to, and that way you have your professional self out there and your private one is separate. And then I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues here to cover these specific areas. And please let me know when to advance the slides.
Thank you, John. Hi, everyone. Drew here, and I'm going to go into a little bit more depth about navigating the job search process if you are an individual who identifies as having a diagnosis or disability and may need or are considering requesting workplace accommodations. So the first thing that is really important for you to recognize are your rights, these legal federal guidelines that allow you to gain equal access to employment opportunities. Having this background information on what you are legally entitled to, our hope is that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable as you navigate the job search process. So more specifically, looking at the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, Title I is designed to ensure people with disabilities access to the same employment opportunities and benefits available to people without disabilities. So again, kind of having this background information, knowing that you have a legal right to access the same employment opportunities as individuals who don't present with a diagnosis, hopefully can empower you to feel motivated in your job search. It's also important for you to know that under the ADA, employers must provide reasonable accommodations to qualified applicants or employees. A reasonable accommodation is any modification or adjustment to a job or the work environment that will enable the applicant or employee with a disability to participate in the application process or to perform essential job functions. So this information is kind of multifaceted. You might be an individual who actually needs accommodations to engage in the application process. And if so, we'll talk a little bit more about when you might want to disclose and how you can communicate proactively about any accommodations you might need at that process or at that point in the process. But it's important to know that even if you don't need accommodations while you're applying, there might be times when you believe it is reasonable or appropriate for you to have workplace accommodations when you're on the job in order to have that equal access to employment rights. John, all set for the next one. Looking at a different sort of act related to the Americans with Disabilities Act is the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973, as amended, prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability in programs conducted by federal agencies, in programs receiving federal financial assistance, in federal employment, and in employment practices of federal contractors. So particularly important if this happens to be the type of work you're looking for, or if you're looking to be associated with an employer who might be receiving monies from the federal government. There are particular enhancements related to your equal access to employment opportunities. What do I need? So clarifying for personal and professional needs, it's really important that you kind of take inventory of where you're at with the job search process and what may make the most sense for you. Obviously, very sensitive to and supportive of financial needs. And sometimes we don't get the luxury to maybe interrogate a prospective employer as much as we would like to ensure that it's a good fit. But when able, it's really important to kind of think critically about what works for you as an individual and what sort of agency or employer you hope to be associated with. So thinking about work environment preferences, if you've had work experiences in the past, what elements have you really liked? What maybe made you feel comfortable? What allowed you to complete the job duties as outlined effectively? What were maybe some things that you observed that you didn't necessarily like? These could be, any number of items. The physical presence of the office. Maybe it was noisy. Maybe you think if you could go back and select a different employer, maybe I'd work better in an environment that is a little bit more controlled or less distracting. It's important to think about your career goals and personal values. So are you looking for an employer that is going to work with you to identify opportunities for you to grow within the agency? Personal values, are you looking for a job that really allows you to have a strong work-life balance? Or maybe is it a job that you're okay with working a little bit above and beyond the standard working business day? Company considerations. Again, maybe if you've had some previous experience, you've identified that you like working for a bigger company. Maybe you find that they have more resources for you. Or oppositely, maybe you've had an opportunity to work with a smaller employer and you find that smaller employers, at least in that experience, kind of had you tap into a broader sense of community or felt a little bit more tight-knit. No really wrong answers here. What you're doing is just looking at your experiences and considering what worked for you, what you liked, and maybe what you didn't like so much. Consider the support system. So if you're doing work on identifying, what kind of systems are in place from the employer, health insurance, what kind of benefits they might allow you to tap into, having information on that support system is going to be important. If you're an individual who has standing appointments with a mental health provider, and if you know that those appointments are really important for you to maintain, is there some flexibility with when you can meet with that individual? Or when the time comes, is that an accommodation request that you would need to discuss with the prospective employer? And then really think about, am I in a situation where I need to even ask for accommodations in the workplace? It might be that there are, in fact, accommodations that would be, important for you to have to meet the job duties. Or it might be the type of situation where the employer sort of takes a universal design approach and many of the items, physical items, if you need that, or maybe they construct the environment in a way that's really accessible, that it isn't absolutely imperative that you have a formal request of accommodations. These are all kinds of things that if you think about on the front end, they can make you be more aligned with an employer who will hopefully meet your needs as you get to know them more and as you develop through the application process. I think Jackie is up next.
All right, Jackie here. So our next slide is what to know before you disclose. So personal decision, some things to consider when disclosing. Disclosing a disability is a personal choice, and there is no one size fit all answer. So depending on your needs, that will be best for you might not work for someone else. So the right time to disclose depends on individual needs, goals, and also comfort level, the job requirements, and if accommodations are needed at different stages of the job search process. So before disclosing, some points to consider is understand your rights. Like Drew said earlier, the ADA, knowing Title I, just know everything that you need to do before you start talking or looking at jobs and talking to employers. So know why you are disclosing. This is important because once you do your research, you look into the jobs, if you have a disability that affects how you are going to perform, then that's when you may want to disclose. Or if you find the company may work well for you and you may not need to. So that's what you should also look for. Also, that goes hand in hand with our next point, which is the timing of disclosure. There is no right or wrong answer for that. You can always disclose at the beginning, like when you're interviewing, or at the end, like, or once you already have the job. There's no right or wrong answer for when you do choose to disclose. So determine also what to disclose. You don't have to give your entire medical history to someone, but you can give specific key points. And then also think about the work environment. Think about how your disability can work well in that environment, or can it be triggered in that environment? Is it going to be a healthy work environment for you, or could your disability interpret it as a hostile? That's not what we want when you're looking for a job. Okay. Also, plan how you'll disclose. You're going to look at how you're going to disclose your disability to someone. How you present it is also going to be how your employer receives it. So if you're going to demand it, that might not be the best steps. But if you're going to ask questions, and also you've already done your research, and that will help you disclose what you need and what is going to be the best fit for you. Also research the company's accommodation process, and also practice self-advocacy. So do your research, be sure to advocate for yourself, and then know when to disclose. So our next point is when to disclose. Consider your timing and what aligns with your goals. So at a job fair, on the application, before the interview, during the interview, after receiving a job offer, after starting the job, or never. That is entirely up to you. Next slide.
And I'll go ahead and take back over here. Thank you both for talking on those points. So everything that we've mentioned already is really about knowing yourself, knowing your needs, so that you're ready when you go speak to an employer. And then the next part is going to be knowing about your professional self. We call it career storytelling. So it's more than just repeating, like, maybe here's my degree or here are the jobs I've held. It's about showing all of those professional experiences you've had. Kind of what is your direction? What are the values and experiences that you have? What are the goals you have for the future? Things like your resume and your elevator pitch are really important and very common ways that people tell that story, how they really like bring it to life. Shows how you can connect your past experiences to your future goals. It helps show your continuing growth and your achievements. Um, Explains who you are through your experiences. And again, what your unique path adds value. Like, how do you bring those experiences to different employers? So with that in mind, the first part, and this is going to be a really important one, is your elevator pitch. This is a general idea. I would encourage you not to think of this as a script. You're not repeating a, a memorized script, but try to get an idea of a general introduction that you're going to be using. Typically, it's something relatively short, around 30 seconds. You're introducing yourself. You're mentioning kind of your relevant skills and experiences, express your career goals, and it's important here, practice it. You want to make sure that it sounds very natural. It's conversational. You're not delivering a memorized speech, but that you're conversing with another individual. So some of the things you want to make sure that you're mentioning is who you are. You know, this could be your name. It might be what you are right now. Maybe it's a student. Maybe it's the title you have. What do you do? Maybe, again, a short overview of your most relevant experiences, maybe your most relevant skills that you offer. What you want, you know, are you looking for a job? Are you looking for an internship? Are you looking for a chance to learn just more about companies? And then typically you try to finish with what we call a call to action. You know, kind of what's the next step? That's where you ask about the jobs, what are the career options? What's some more about this company that you don't necessarily know? So you can see an example here on the far side. Who am I? You know, hi, my name's RB Riverbat. What do you do? I'm a marketing major with 2 years of experience in social media management. So that's pulling almost everything you might have on a resume very briefly into 2 sentences. What do you want? I'm interested in learning more about your available positions. You might even clarify into something like I'm interested in available positions related to marketing or social media or something like that for this instance. And then a call to action. What can you tell me, or can you tell me more about whatever it might be? Typically, that's in the context of a job fair. You're asking about open positions, you're asking about company culture, you're asking about maybe advancement opportunities within a company. There's a lot of different things that you may want to ask about, but it's following up with that, not just, hey, do you have jobs? But learning more and finding out what the next steps are going to be. The next thing, and this is redundant, we've covered this in a separate resume presentation. I also covered it last week during our job and internship search presentation, but it's very important and I wanted to revisit it today. So part of your career, telling your career story, is having a good resume, something that shows why you're a good fit for a career field, at least, if not for a specific position. Because you're not looking at a specific job here, you can't really target your resume like you might when you're applying to a position. But what you want to do is really, again, focus on telling your story. So you want to do a few things. Format it well. You want to keep it very simple. Make sure you keep it relatively short, 1 to 2 pages. Make sure there's no typos, grammatical errors. I encourage people, don't do photos, tables, columns, graphics, any extra design things take away from your resume. Even if it's a physical copy, you want it to be very clean and simple. And some of the things you want to make sure you're including are an accomplishment statement. You're showcasing some of your skills. Maybe it's a technical skill that you've learned through your career, your time here at ACC. Maybe it's a transferable skill you've learned in a different unrelated job. Maybe it's something you've even learned volunteering. And then what do you show? Again, you're trying to show your professional strengths and what unique value you bring to a company. So those two components, your elevator pitch and your resume, are going to be really key for telling your career story in the context of attending a job fair. Step 3 is, what do you wear? Overall, you want to dress professionally. Professional dress is usually something like a business casual setting for most positions that we would be offering here at ACC. Keep it, you want to dress neatly. Try to look nice. Try to look generally, professional. Dark or neutral colors are pretty good. It may vary a lot by industry. I don't think anybody needs to necessarily get a full tuxedo or something for any of our positions. Basically, just try to avoid things like shorts, flip-flops, t-shirts with pictures all over it, things of that nature. So just try to dress neatly, presentably, professionally to speak with employers at a job fair. Step 4 is getting the most out of your job fair. So a couple of things to consider when you arrive is to check in. I would encourage everybody to arrive as early as possible. That way gives you time to explore the space for accessibility. If you need it, make sure to look for places where you can go be quiet. There's quiet rooms for breaks as you need to, because it can get a little crowded. It can be a little overwhelming at times. So it's a good idea to find some of those spaces to give yourself a little rest. Make sure to check in at the career services table. And obviously that's for here at one of our centers. If you're going to some sort of outside agency somewhere, then of course check in with their main service. And if you have any accessibility requirements, that would be something to speak with the agency hosting the job fair. In this instance, it's career service. And of course, be courteous. Many employers are going to have giveaways. So you want to make sure to not just walk by and grab stuff without speaking with them. Make sure you're having a conversation with them and be ready. So make sure to the event, bring a resume, bring a notepad, any sort of assistive devices you might need. And of course, you want to be positive. You don't want to go to a job fair and maybe be negative or be upset or something. Try to show positivity. It's good to stay organized and focused on your goals as you go through. And make sure to ask questions, be friendly, show interest, and be confident in yourself and your skills and your experience. Again, you want to present yourself. You're a professional with a set of skills and experiences you're offering to a company. So really approach it from that perspective. This is what I bring to this role, not necessarily that from a position of, being worried about getting a job or anything. You're a professional coming to the table. So when you meet with employers, in this particular instance, it should be an employer is going to be at separate tables. And I would encourage you to visit each of those employers if at all possible, not just the one that you may be the most interested in. Sometimes there can be a line for the employers. You could wait, or you could spend that time to visit some other employers that do not have a line. And it's definitely a good idea to exchange contact information with recruiters when you're meeting with them. That might be handing them a resume, that might be directing them to like your LinkedIn profile. There's different methods, but typically a resume is the most common one. And then we would go into some of the general questions you might ask. So again, a job fair is an absolutely wonderful chance for you to meet directly with employers and find out about that company, about the positions, try to get some more info about the application process because those can be challenging sometimes, and then overall about the company culture. So some of the example ones here are, what maybe entry level positions are available at your company? What kind of people do you hire to fill them? How can I improve my chances of receiving a job offer? And that may open up a lot of different information. They may have advice on during the application, make sure you do XYZ, or on your resume, make sure that you're showing these skills, things like that. It can be a very informative question to ask. What's your interview process like? And do you have any advice to share? Can also be very helpful. You also do want to keep in mind different people at the job fair may not necessarily have the same position that you may be looking at. So just know that may be a little different for different divisions within large companies, but it still can be very informative. What qualities or backgrounds are you looking for in your employees? What skills or experiences stand out to you in an interview or on a resume? That can also be nice to know what is really valued by those employers. What are they looking for from potential employees? And sometimes it's a great thing to ask, what do you like best about working for this company? That can open up a lot of different insights into broader company culture as well. And then this one is specifically, it's a reverse job fair. So this one is going to be really focused on getting some of those more specific questions on employers about accommodations, what sort of support do they offer to employees. So this is a great company. I'm sorry, this is a great opportunity to talk about different companies' commitments to accessibility, to support for their employees. So here's some examples of questions related to that. Can you describe the essential functions and requirements of this position? What support or resources are generally provided in the workplace? What's the process for requesting those if needed? How does this company demonstrate its commitment to an accessible workplace culture? And maybe if you need an accommodation, I'd like to ensure that I can participate fully in the interview process. What's the best way to request the necessary accommodations for that? Just really exploring some of those type of questions that again, it can be a little bit harder to find online. Sometimes it can be a little bit harder to tell that from a job posting. And this is a great opportunity to ask some of those questions.
And John, just a quick note here too, what I really like about these questions is that there's actually no disclosure in any of them, especially with kind of questions 1 through 3. Those are questions that any prospective employer might ask. Any prospective employee might ask a prospective employer. So if you happen to be kind of concerned about what it means to disclose, am I giving too much information? When should I do that? Asking questions like this can kind of clue you into where the company's at in terms of their approach and their climate for working with individuals who might need workplace accommodations. So I think that these are really helpful questions to get more information from that employer.
Great. And then, just overall, we do have a couple of resources out there. We have our website here. Lots of fantastic resources on there for everyone. The infographics are just beautiful, really great examples for the entire job search process, not just for getting ready for the job fair. Of course, here's the information about the actual specific job fair coming up next week. So this is going to be a really good opportunity for you to meet with those employers, ask them all those types of questions we just talked about, get some more advice on the potential career paths open to you. And just we're also going to be there to help give you the tools, the confidence, the connections to help you with your job search. And then obviously at this point, I do want to open it up for questions, but do know if anybody has very involved questions, very specific questions, that would be a great opportunity to also schedule a one-on-one meeting so that we can help people. It might be something for a resume, it might be for interviews, it might be more job search help. It could be something as basic as career exploration, career planning, what are the next steps for me in my career path I'm choosing. So we are here to help with all of those processes. So make sure to let us know what we can do, and we will meet with students one-on-one, virtually or in person, whatever their needs may be, to help them out. So I'm going to stop sharing and we can open up the floor for questions.